G'day, I'm Sharon and welcome. Big thanks to Jan who has loaned me her Janome 134D for these tutorials. Today we're looking at differential feed, gathering, rolled hem and oiling. So let's get started. The machine is completely threaded. I'm going to take the threads here and give everything a bit of a tug, just making sure everything is bedded down into the tension discs. On the right hand side of the machine we have stitch length, which is measured in millimetres, and the bigger the number the longer the stitch will be. This is differential feed and I will explain that in a bit. And down here we have the flywheel, which is exactly the same as the flywheel on your sewing machine. So as we turn this, the needle goes up and down. We're obviously plugged in, and down here we also have the on-off switch. On the other end we have a thread cutter. When you bring your thread up here and forward, there's a blade inside it that will cut your thread off. And just behind here we have the presser foot lever, so we can put the foot up and down. If I've unthreaded and rethreaded my machine, I'll always do a bit of test stitching. You can see there, that's very nice. The green and red threads are coming together on the edge. The blue one is perhaps showing a little more than I would like on the back. That one's not hugely important, but I can tighten it up a bit. And the important bit is to come inside and pull. When you give this a tug, if you see a ladder of threads on the right side, then you've got a tension problem. Usually it will mean that the left needle, the one that's in yellow, its tension is too loose. Sometimes it also has a little bit to do with the lower looper tension, the green one, but mostly it's the left needle. Tighten that one up a bit after you've made sure that it's properly in the tension discs. If we imagine that that is a shoulder seam and this is a sleeve, we place the sleeve on top of the shoulder seam to stitch it in. I do not lift the foot. The feed dogs are so close to the front of that foot they will pull the fabric in without me needing to lift it. The only time I really lift the presser foot on an overlocker is if I'm putting in thick fabric. And by thick I don't mean things like denim, that usually works fine. What I'm talking about is things like fleecy and polar fleece, things that are fluffy. What can happen with thick fabrics is that when the feed dogs start pulling in the fabric underneath, the top fabric stays behind and you end up with a bit of a gap. So in order to sort that out, lift the foot, put both of those fabrics together under the foot and right up close to the needles, so the needle will catch the top one as well as the bottom one. The blue is now showing a little bit less on the back. It's still a little tiny dot and it's there, but it's not showing so much. You'll notice I didn't worry about this seam that I was going over. When I cut that edge off, I finished off this seam. I've been sewing with overlockers for 35 or 40 years. It's basically not an issue when you are sewing. If you've gone across one seam with another seam, it's not going to come undone. It is an issue if you have got two pieces of fabric coming together and one end of them is not going to be crossed by another seam. In that case, check out my video about finishing chains on overlockers, because it will help you to know what to do with those chain ends. I've got my stitch length up as high as it will go, which is 4. Always try to make sure you cut some fabric off as you're sewing. Your machine is designed to have fabric being cut off along that edge as you sew. The blade is tough. It will last many, many years of sewing. trimming off fabric. The only time I don't use it is if I'm trying to go over something that's got maybe 6 layers of denim in it, in which case I might trim it off first and then just run that cut along the edge of the blade. But on the whole, use the blade. The machine's designed for it. They're going to last a long time as long as you don't run over a pin. Now I'll move it down to 3. Two and R. I would never go shorter than R. So there is 4, 3, 2 and R. If you're sewing on big fluffy fabrics like polar fleece, make your stitch length very long. In no small part because polar fleece is fluffy, and when your machine is trying to move the fabric along, it's like it's trying to grab hold of fairy floss or candy floss or whatever you call it in your part of the world. It's not something firm for it to get hold of, and it makes it harder for the machine to move the fabric. I usually sew with my machine set somewhere around 3. Very rarely ever go shorter than that. There's no need to have more stitches than that in what you're sewing. R is for rolled hemming. We'll come to that later, but generally high 2s up to 4, that's where you'll be. I'm now going to look at the differential feed. I'm going to put the differential feed up as high as I can, and at the same time I'm going to have the stitch length up as high as I can, which is about 3.5. The differential feed is on 2, and that is all I've changed. You can see there that the fabric has been slightly gathered. If you look under the presser foot of your overlocker, you will find that it has 2 sets of feed dogs, a front set and a back set. When you've got your machine set to 1, they both work together. And if you've got it set to 2, the front set will work twice as hard as the back set, which means it's pulling in more fabric than it's putting out at the back, and essentially that's like easing. And that's what we're doing here. 2 places you can use it. If you are doing a long seam, maybe on a pair of stretchy trousers, and you've ended up with a seam that's wavy, by increasing your differential feed a bit, you'll bring that back into flat. It's also really good if you're doing sleeves and you need to ease the top of the sleeve before you put it in. There are some very good cases for differential feed. It's also something to keep in mind if you are sewing very stretchy fabrics, especially if you've got a lot of stuff that's laying in your lap, because a very stretchy fabric is going to stretch just from the weight of it hanging down in front of your machine. Try to support the fabric, but you may still need to tighten that differential feed up a bit. I'm going to do exactly the same thing now, except I'm going to increase the needle tensions, so the yellow and blue, both up to 7. And I'm still making sure I trim a little bit off at the side. And now I'm going to put my finger behind and stop the fabric coming out at the back. And that side is even more tightly gathered. So I got a light ease on this side and I got a tighter gather. So when you tighten the needle tensions, it gathers up more. You can release this by pulling it out, because it is just gathered onto those blue and yellow threads. If you want to tighten it further, get hold of those needle threads, the blue and the yellow ones, and pull on them, and you can pull the fabric even further into a tighter gather. Gathering really only works on lightweight fabrics. but it does work, and it's a lot faster than trying to do it with your sewing machine. Janome also makes a gathering foot. I'm pretty sure they have one for this machine, and that will make the effect even more pronounced. Put everything back to normal now. If you want to change to a rolled hem, we change the plate. Now I'm not going to be able to change the plate completely because I don't have the rolled hem for this machine, but I will take this one off to show you how it's done. First I'm going to turn the machine off, and I'm going to loosen and remove the screw. Lift the foot, cut the threads, and take that plate out. This is the regular needle plate for the Overlocker. On the back of it, your standard needle plate has got an S on the back of it. The rolled hem one has an R on the back of it. Take the standard one out and put the R one in. The rest of what I'll show you about rolled hem I actually did on a different machine because I couldn't do it on this one. For a rolled hem, set your differential feed to 1, set your stitch length to R, and set your lower looper tension to 7. You'll notice that I have not taken the left needle out. You certainly can do that. I generally do not. There's my rolled hem, and the only difference between that and what the instructions tell you is that I have still got the yellow needle in, the yellow thread in the needle in. In order to remove that line of stitching, which you certainly can do, you need to take the needle out, not just the thread. I'm perfectly happy to have it in there. You can do a rolled hem with both needles. On the back, because I've done it with both needles, you do get to see some of the green. I need to take my green tension back down to about 3.5 and move my stitch length back up to 3. When you go to put it back in, foot up, put it in and screw it back on. You can actually take your differential feed down lower, and that will stretch the fabric. If you take it down to 0.7, you get a lettuce edge on your rolled hem. Before you start oiling your machine, please clean it. Oil plus lint makes a nasty gluey mess. I use Helmer's Super Lube machine oil. I'm not associated in any way, shape or form, and this is probably enough to keep me going for most of my life. It's a good quality oil. Do not use anything yellow, and definitely do not put any sort of a food oil into your machine. You don't want to be breeding insects in there. We've got one oiling point at the top of the machine, and then we're looking inside. One drop up here, one drop down the bottom of that, and one in there, one down here. Around at this side we now have 2 oiling holes. A few places around here, one in here at the back, and basically anywhere you can see that metal is rubbing against metal. It is really a matter of just turning around, and anywhere you can see metal turning on metal, just put a drop in. We're really not trying to relocate an oil well into the insides of your machine. One drop here and there is all it takes, and check with your manual to see if there are any other specific places that it mentions, but really what you're looking for is places where metal rubs on metal. I sincerely hope you've learned something about your machine today, and once again huge thanks to Jan for having loaned me her machine. It is most appreciated. And I shall see you next time.